Welcome back, everybody. I'm Jake, the Scary Story Guy, and today I'm back on my not technically a scary story at all kick with Eileen, a new psychological thriller starring Thomasin, McKenzie, and Anne Hathaway. I always feel like everything I review on this channel just has to be straight horror all of the time, but you know what? It's December, not a lot of horror movies coming out, and I already reviewed Black Christmas, the GOAT horror Christmas movie, last year. So, and besides, the one other time that I really branched outside of the horror world on this channel was for a movie called The Artifice Girl, which that ended up being one of my most successful videos, to the point where the star and director of the film ended up leaving a very nice comment. So I am fully expecting Anne Hathaway to show up in this comment section. I'm going to be very disappointed if she leaves me hanging. But Eileen is based on a novel that got pretty popular a few years back. It's about a young woman named Eileen, and Eileen lives with her shitty dad in a shitty house and works a shitty job as a secretary at the local prison. But her life gets turned upside down when the beautiful and glamorous Rebecca enters the stage as the new prison psychologist. And I say enters the stage because even when she's in a movie, Anne Hathaway is incapable of turning off her inner theater kid. Which I'm not complaining about. I've always said if every theater kid was like Anne Hathaway, people wouldn't be so annoyed by theater kids. They'd more just be kind of impressed by their talent and charm all the time. Which is how Eileen obviously feels about Anne Hathaway throughout this whole thing. It's basically love at first sight for our girl, and while that's partially because it doesn't seem like Eileen has ever been near a color that wasn't some variation of gray, it's also because Rebecca is an absolutely dynamic presence in her life. And funnily enough, this same dynamic actually seems to exist between the actors in real life. I watched a few interviews with them, and Thomasin McKenzie just seems totally in awe of her older co-star the entire time. And I think this serves the movie really well because one of the best things that Eileen has going for it is the chemistry between these two actresses. Rebecca is obviously too big a personality for a small town like this. She just seems kind of desperate for a friend, for some social connection, whereas Eileen herself is almost like a lucky toy that's been picked up by the claw machine or something. Like she's just been plucked from obscurity by Rebecca to live this life that's romantic and thrilling and dangerous. I also want to say that Thomasin McKenzie is obviously very good at playing a fragile little bird. She does that in most movies, I think in part because of her sort of waifishly unique speaking voice. And she does that here too to some extent, but there's definitely something kind of lurking underneath the surface with her character that speaks to some greater potential as an actress, maybe able to play someone who's a little bit rougher around the edges. Shea Wiggum is also great as her dad, but it's kind of the same thing. I feel like he plays a drunk asshole from Boston in like basically every movie he's in. I'm beginning to think he's not even acting. Like they just kind of roll him into random sets once a year. Like, hey, Shea, just sit here and do your thing. But hey, everyone's gonna call you Jim for a little bit, all right? Just roll with it. He just grumbles back like, can you believe the fucking socks? What a pisser. And I'm not bleeping that one out. First of all, because fack is not a swear word. And second of all, because I'm not exactly proud of my accent at work there, but I stand by it. At any rate, I think I've got it down at least as well as Thomasin, who's speaking in a strange cross between New England and her native New Zealand for most of the film. But jokes aside, all three of those performances are very good, and they carried the movie through what's admittedly a pretty slow first hour. And then, no spoilers, but something happens just after the hour mark of this movie that is maybe one of the most jarring shifts I've ever seen. And for the next 20 minutes, this is as good as anything I've seen in a theater this year. But then the movie just ends. Abruptly, like right as it's hitting its stride, it's just like, and it's gone. And I was pretty fucking miffed by that. Like, I'm pretty economical with the runtime in my movies. It takes an awful lot for me to be like, you know what, that should have been 20 minutes longer. But this is only an hour and a half, and the first hour, like I said, is mostly good but slow setup. So if you're gonna have a shift in the film that's as jarring and frankly awesome as this one is, you gotta let us luxuriate in that a little bit more. I'm not exaggerating. This movie goes from 0 to 60 in the span of a finger snap. Like there's one line that is spoken and you're just like, oh, it's that kind of movie. I was watching it by myself in the theater, and I audibly gasped. And I'm not a gasper. I don't usually even react when I'm watching a movie by myself. I'm fairly stone-faced even when I'm enjoying myself. This got an honest-to-God gasp out of me. And it's not scary in the sense of like, ooh, spooky, but it's dark and twisted enough at least that I think it does, just barely, justify me talking about it on this Scary Story Guy channel. So props for all that. Just, I mean, ride that momentum. momentum a little bit longer. Why not? Guys, at the end of the day, Eileen is a movie that has all the ingredients for something great. It's got fantastic performances, an intriguing setup, one of the most memorable twists committed to film in recent memory. But it just doesn't last long enough to stick the landing. I mean, maybe it told the story that the screenwriter, the author wanted to tell, but it doesn't tell the story that the audience is going to want and expect. The jarringly abrupt ending, just when you're starting to really sit back and be like, oh yeah, I love the movies. I'm sorry, that's just unforgivable. Which is why, even though it has an awful lot going for it, I'm gonna have to hold back and give Eileen 3.5 stars out of 5. But I'm serious when I say that if this movie had just kind of held onto the gas a little bit longer, lasted an hour 50 instead of an hour 30, it could have been 4.5. It's a damn shame. All right, guys, as always, stay tuned for more spooky content coming soon. It's the end of the year, and that means year-end list. We've got a 10 best and 10 worst list coming. But in the meantime, thank you for watching this video, and here's hoping you survive to see the next one.